Today I'm going to quickly talk about the ending of Black Mirror Season 4 Episode 2 Arkangel, while adding some clarity to the overall story, and point out some things you guys might have missed. There will definitely be spoilers ahead for the entire episode, and there will be spoilers for the entire history of You, Crocodile, Hated in the Nation, White Christmas, Nosedive, and Men Against Fire. So with that said, here we go. An implanted chip known as Arkangel allows parents to track their child's location, check their kid's vitals, view a live stream of what their kid is seeing, while saving each memory to an archive ready for playback. The chip also gives parents the ability to censor what their child sees, by pixelating and scrambling the more mature stuff. Marie signs up her daughter Sarah for the Arkangel program after losing track of her at a playground. By the way, when they were first entering the playground, at the bottom of Sarah's stroller was a Waldo lunchbox, a little Easter egg referencing the episode The Waldo Moment. Years after Sarah gets the chip, Arkangel is banned in Europe and the United States. With no option to remove the implant, Sarah is left with Arkangel in her head, and Marie, being an overprotective mother, finds it extremely hard to let go of the tablet that allows her to monitor her daughter at any given moment. Arkangel was the first Black Mirror episode directed by a woman, and that woman being Jodie Foster. And just a quick side note, the episode right after Arkangel is Season 4 Episode 3 Crocodile. In the end of Crocodile, Mia's kid and the rest of the students perform the song You Give a Little Love from the 1976 musical gangster comedy Bugsy Malone, and Jodie Foster starred in Bugsy Malone when she was a kid, playing a character named Tallulah. Jodie Foster commented on this by saying, "I don't think Charlie and Annabelle told me about that in advance, but it was so perfect. Only people in England understand that, because in the United States, Bugsy Malone just came and went, but I love the homage." Foster, being a former child actor who was always in the spotlight, being watched and hovered over all the time, as well as someone who does a great job at working with child actors, was a huge influence when choosing her to direct this episode. When writing the script, Charlie Brooker took inspiration from his own experience as a father. As he said, "I did sort of feel reprogrammed the moment my kids were born. Suddenly I've got a new mission, which is to protect them. At the same time, they're born into a world where there's technology around them and they're immediately tested by it." The script for Arkangel was intended to be a little more sympathetic towards helicopter parenting, a term used to describe a parent that needs to oversee everything their child does, hovering over their kid like a helicopter, monitoring and directing their behavior at all times. Marie ends up using the feature that paints out whatever Sarah sees that triggers stress, similar to how people in White Christmas could be blocked. In the Arkangel facility, we see the first example of this filter when the employee plays some footage from the episode Men Against Fire, another episode where filters are used to prevent people from seeing certain parts of reality. All of these episodes showing us the negative effects that are caused by covering up the truth and what is actually there. This filter was turned on when Sarah was 3, and was kept on until she was 9. This caused Sarah to block out things that were mostly low risk and not damaging, but these small things were crucial to her development, like how Sarah couldn't watch her mother grieve over her grandfather passing, failing to grow a normal sense of empathy, making it so Sarah couldn't grieve properly herself. The filters even hurt Sarah's creativity. She couldn't decide on small things like what color to use in her drawing. It wasn't until Sarah discovered a whole new aspect of the world that she then starts to choose what colors to use in her drawings, as she is trying to make sense of everything. When she was learning about the dangers of the world that she was censored to, it caused her to do some self-harm when she was trying to figure out what blood was. And at the same time, she was not able to find a way to properly externalize her anger, due to the fact that she's never had a chance to be antagonized before, as Sarah couldn't even tell what a fight looked like. The setting plays a huge part in this story. A lot of Arkangel was filmed in a small industrial town somewhere near Toronto, Canada. The idea was to make the neighborhood look more run down. Foster wanted the town to look like a Pittsburgh after all the steel mills left, as the environment was reflective of Marie, so the town would be something that once had such promise but is now in a decline. As Foster put it, a place that used to have a foundation and a glory, but didn't turn out to be much. And that's really how Marie feels about herself. Her father looks at his daughter's life and thinks, wow, what a failure. One of the first things Marie said in the hospital was, "I can't believe I couldn't do it." In that moment, we see her feeling immense guilt and being somewhat ashamed of herself, overall feeling like an inadequate mother/parent. So there is no doubt Marie being overbearing was a byproduct of these issues she had with herself, externalizing these insecurities onto Sarah, going above and beyond to save Sarah from getting hurt or making the same mistakes that she did. Executive producer of Black Mirror, Annabelle Jones, commented on how Foster was determined to get into the character of Marie, saying, "That sense of the economic struggle that a single mom might be having, the loneliness of that world and the pressures which all fed her reliance on the Arkangel system. Marie's way of parenting was visually communicating communicated to us in the last shot of the first scene, with Marie holding newborn Sarah in her arms as she is mostly cleaned up, while the blood in the afterbirth of the C-section remain hidden behind the curtain, foreshadowing how Marie will be hiding the awful and unpleasant stuff from her daughter. When the grandfather negatively looks at this new wave of helicopter parenting and says, "I am 2,000 years old and I remember when we used to open up the door and just let the kids be," the grandfather has a good point. Allowing your kid to be more independent can help with their overall growth. For example, there are these things called adventure playgrounds, which are designated areas where kids are left to play with various tools and manipulatable objects, like tires, planks of wood, and a whole lot of other building materials. When presented to your average parent, it could sound a little crazy, but research shows that there's actually more injuries on safe playgrounds, because these kids playing on these safer structures felt like they had to do more dangerous activities on those playgrounds due to the boring modern-day designs. Kids in adventure playgrounds are given tools and separation from their parents, free to build and play however they want, causing them to feel a sense of responsibility, which gives them the ability to develop stronger creative skills and enhance their approach to taking risks, causing them to be safer, the opposite of what a kid would get from a very sheltered existence. This idea of an adventure playground would sound absolutely horrific to these helicopter parents, not wanting to put their snowflake into a place where they could potentially hurt themselves. But we can see that exposure to these risks and more dangerous play can actually cause your child to be more cautious and responsible. Things like violence, drug usage, provocative films, and explicit language can all be viewed by anyone through a bunch of websites and different applications. The argument can be made that seeing mature content at a young age is a necessary evil. Jodie Foster claimed, "As mothers, we hope to raise these strong daughters who don't have to learn the feminist lessons that we did, and there's a price to shielding them from that reality," bringing up the debate of how much we should shield our kids from the world. When Sarah has the filter turned off, it's a scary world, but Sarah adapts to it. Sarah is exposed to the dog over time, the same barking dog that Marie hated and was spooked out by. However, Sarah's routine caused her to get to know the defensive animal and actually befriend it. But even though the filter was turned off, having that filter for 6 years subtly affects Sarah later on, as Sarah ends up not being able to connect with a lot of people, and is seen dressing in more baggy and muted clothing, kind of like what the character Allison Reynolds wears in The Breakfast Club. Sarah even says to her mom that she's going to Riley's for movie night, and they're gonna watch some vintage thing, The Breakfast Gang, meaning to say The Breakfast Club. Sarah's room is full of creepy drawings with heads either missing eyes or their eyes are whited out, symbolic of how Marie blinded Sarah to certain aspects of the world when she was younger. By the way, in Sarah's room, there's a poster for the musician Tusk hanging on the ceiling, the artist who is insulting the little kids' dance in the episode Hidden in the Nation. And to the right of that poster, there's another poster for the famous video game Harlot's Shadow from the episode Playtest. When Sarah and Trick are having sex, she starts talking dirty to him, using a manner of speaking she picked up on while watching porn. And speaking of the debate of how much we should shield our kids from the world, a part of this episode that I find fascinating is that we see two opposite ends of the spectrum, Trick being a kid with no supervision and Sarah having a whole lot of it. In the schoolyard, Trick is doing what every good parent fears, as he's holding a tablet and watching all the sexual, graphic, and mature piece of content that's on the internet. While each video Trick would show or describe to Sarah was blurred out, Trick had a father that would beat him for getting into a fight, and we never see Marie punish Sarah. But then during their teenage years, when Trick tries getting out on his own and Sarah's device is turned off, they're both more independent and seem relatively okay. By the way, the overall communication between Marie and Sarah was horrendous. Talking dirty is a completely acceptable thing to do during sex, but Trick specifically brings up, like, the porn stuff, and the fact that she doesn't have to talk like that for him. This is some speculation, but due to the censorship and lack of communication, Sarah speaking this way could definitely imply that Marie never talked with Sarah about this kind of stuff, because she was still giving Sarah a very filtered upbringing even after the filters were turned off. With porn being the only thing to really educate her, Sarah grew up thinking that she had to talk like that during sex, as it was the only way she heard people communicate in that kind of setting. If Marie briefly educated her daughter enough on things like sex, to the point where she could trust her to go out on her own and make responsible decisions, there's a good chance that Sarah wouldn't have gotten pregnant in the first place. But like I said, that's just some speculation. Marie didn't find out Sarah lied to her through Arkangel. She found out Sarah was not at Riley's in a completely legitimate way. Also, Sarah said that she would be home at 11:30, but Marie calls her at 11:17. Just a small detail that subtly emphasized the level of Marie's paranoia. And just a quick side note, every teenager lies to their parents. And in most circumstances, it's not really a bad thing, especially when it's something like Sarah lying to her mom so she could go out to the lake. When they do this, it proves that they're becoming more self-sufficient and independent, not needing their parents to dictate their decisions, which is a huge part of becoming an adult. When Marie is unable to get in contact with her daughter, she goes straight for the tablet to view her location, which is something that every helicopter parent and normal parent can relate to nowadays, as there are so many apps out there that can track your son or daughter by using their smartphone, and it's almost impossible for a parent not to just make sure everything is okay by using one of these apps on their smartphone or tablet. But then Marie falls down a slippery slope. She continues to use the tablet to collect information and make changes to Sarah's life. When viewing Sarah's optic feed, Marie is seeing things out of context, as she was somewhat to blame for Sarah using aggressive porn talk during sex. Marie also didn't see that Sarah was the one really pushing Trick to give her drugs, because Marie is one of those parents that thinks her child can do no wrong. So Marie doesn't confront or properly discipline Sarah when she is involved in some bad activities. Marie instead blames the rest of the world and people like Trick. Obviously, he shouldn't have given Sarah drugs, but overall we see that Trick was a pretty decent and caring individual. Marie makes decisions for Sarah's love life, and the moment Marie puts emergency contraceptive pills in the morning smoothie, we realized it was the moment where Marie started making decisions for Sarah's body. When in the Arkangel facility, Marie acts surprised when first seeing Sarah's optic feed, almost like she didn't know it was a feature. But when they start talking about content limitations, Marie is no doubt ignorant on what Arkangel has to offer, showing us that she went for the first thing that sounded like she could locate her kid, without really making any informed decisions. Marie destroys her daughter's caring and mostly innocent relationship with Trick. However, Marie routinely sleeps with one of her patients, knowing that he's in a relationship. So we see that sometimes Marie is not capable of making her own responsible decisions, yet she thinks she knows best for her daughter. Because of this betrayal, Sarah ends up brutally beating her mom with the Arkangel tablet after the filter was accidentally turned back on. For those claiming the moment was a little jarring, bear in mind that this was only 6 years after the sensor was turned off. We saw that when Sarah was 9, she never learned how to properly deal with anger. Jodie Foster even said Sarah has the scrambler turned on, so she's not experiencing the same level of violence that we see objectively. What she's feeling is an exterior manifestation of her emotional interior. So Sarah is letting out all of this aggression but having no way of knowing how much damage she is doing, reverting back to how she was 6 years prior. When Sarah was in class right before she leaves to throw up, the teacher begins quoting Oedipus from the story Oedipus Rex, a Greek tragedy where a king unknowingly murdered his father and married his mother. And this is not the first time I brought up the story of Oedipus Rex when analyzing an episode of Black Mirror, as I compared the story of Oedipus Rex to the episode The Entire History of You. And I know some of you are thinking, is he really gonna compare another episode of Black Mirror to Oedipus Rex? And to answer your question, yes. Yes, I am. To give a less brief summary of the tragedy, Oedipus was given a prophecy that one day he would murder his father and sleep with his mother. Oedipus was separated from his actual biological parents at birth, as they were given the same prophecy, so they sent their son away to die. Because he was given away at birth, Oedipus didn't know that his actual parents were the king and queen of Thebes. When leaving his home to avoid the prophecy, Oedipus travels to Thebes. And I think we all know where this is going. On a road traveling there, Oedipus murdered an older man during a dispute, not knowing that it was his own father and the king of Thebes. When he arrives at the city, he solves the riddle of the Sphinx and marries Jocasta, also known as his mother. This tragedy mainly follows Oedipus seeking the truth, coming to the realization that he ended up fulfilling the prophecy of killing his dad and marrying his mom. Upon the discovery that he committed these atrocities, Oedipus blinds himself. In the entire history of You, everyone has an implant in their head called a grain, allowing them to record and play back any moment they experience. The chip in Arkangel shares a lot of similarities with the grain. In this episode in particular, there are more subtle moments showing us the wrongness of viewing the memories of others. Fee was doing some low-key helicopter parenting herself, when watching the playback of her child while also observing the actions of her babysitter, putting the implant in the child's head with no consent, just like Marie getting Arkangel for Sarah. The menus for memory playback in both episodes look very similar as well. In the entire history of You, we focus on the domestic bubble of Liam and Fee, with Liam using memory playback or redos to find out if Fee is cheating on him with another man named Jonas. In my analysis on that episode, I compare Liam's decision of pulling out the grain to Oedipus gouging out his eyes. As Oedipus said, "I stabbed out these eyes. Why should I have eyes? Why? When nothing I saw was worth seeing. Nothing." The logo for Arkangel is an eye, as a representation of the kid's optic feed getting sent to the tablet so they can be watched over by their guardian. In the first scene, Marie kept screaming out, "Is she okay?" as 3 doctors surrounded Sarah on the operating table, blocking Marie's vision, showing us Marie's desperate need to see if Sarah is okay from the moment she is born. Both Liam and Marie needed to see what happened. Like Oedipus in how right up until his revelation, he was determined to find the truth. Liam has to know whether or not Fee is cheating on him, needing to play back his memories and overanalyze every encounter they had. And Marie seeks the truth by keeping the tablet and viewing Sarah's optic feed because she needs to make sure Sarah is safe. Oedipus went to Thebes to avoid his fate. Marie got Arkangel to prevent her from losing Sarah. Sarah's teacher quotes Oedipus saying, "Let the storm burst, my fixed resolve still holds, and nothing can make me other than what I am." 2 quotes taken from this larger piece of dialogue from the Greek tragedy. And the too long didn't read of that quote is Oedipus essentially saying that even though the fate of him killing his father and marrying his mother was already sealed, it's because of his persistent searching that he discovered that the prophecy became true, holding himself responsible for the tragedy that unfolded, and not blaming fate. In a sense, Marie was destined to lose Sarah. She feared losing Sarah from the moment she was born, and she became this overbearing parent that manipulated aspects of Sarah's life that would eventually cause Marie to lose her. It was Marie's persistent searching and the need of knowing the absolute truth that caused her to fulfill her prophecy. Sarah gets in a truck that is probably not driven by someone as nice and grounded as Susan from Nosedive, but it was specifically a truck to show us that Sarah is going as far away as possible and will most likely never return. When the episode cuts to credits, the song "I'm a Mother" by Pretenders starts playing. Jodie Foster claimed, "It's a plaintive song and it's tough, but it takes us back to the mother's perspective." So there's almost this Black Mirror-esque wink. The last time we see Marie, she is screaming in the street and yelling for her daughter the same way she did 12 years prior. And once again, Marie has no way of locating Sarah or knowing if she is okay. When Sarah enters the truck, the door closes and we suddenly lose track of her. We are put into Marie's perspective, as we are blinded to Sarah's location and have no knowledge of where Sarah is headed. And that's all I had to say about Arkangel. I feel like this is a very important episode as there is new technology coming out every day, bringing us closer and closer to this program. If you love Black Mirror and anything sci-fi, please subscribe to my channel and check out my Black Mirror Ending Explained playlist full of videos of me analyzing the show. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next Black Mirror Ending Explained.